Welcome back to Cheche. We have Salon from the set. We're discussing the party nominations, what went wrong, what went right, and what it all means for the August general election. Sharing their painfully earned experience and insights are Odwar Ongwen, the Executive Director of ODM, and Andrew Musangi, Chairman of the Jubilee Party National Election Board. And I want to thank you both for your candor. But now if we're looking to August, and Odwar, I'd like to ask you this question. In 2013, you were disappointed with the outcome of the presidential election, the results. You filed, went all the way up to the Supreme Court. Now, given the nominations we have seen, right, if the same sort of scenario were to repeat itself in August, how much sympathy do you think the Kenyan public would have with your position?
I want to say this. We have gone through this experience, and we know exactly what we don't want to see in August. So instead of asking what sympathy we expect from the public, I think what we would ask is what lessons is the National Election Management Body learning from this?
No, we will come to the lessons.
Yes.
But the question has to do with your own perception.
Yes.
We were talking about that before the break. Yeah. Your image, right? You demand, you hold the IEBC to a standard that your own party fails to adhere to.
I think maybe I put my answer the other way when I started, and that is, who has the capacity to conduct a general election? And I would go back to the issue of method of parties nominating candidates, because
and you've told us about that.
With a budget,
but now we're just talking about
with a budget of only 150 million shillings to conduct general election in the Republic, how much does IBC require? How much training do they have for their staff? How much do they invest in technology and all this? We expect political parties to do with about 1/10 of what IBC does, and you require political parties to do a general election. And I will go back to the issue, do we have to do our primaries the way we are doing?
So what
if you ask me, I would say no.
You pick them.
Pardon?
What do you suggest? That ODM, the leadership, they go to a board and pick the candidate instead of doing the primary?
Political parties must have a way of picking candidates that represent the vision, the ideology of those political parties.
Rather than
selection. I want to give you an example. Yeah. In Britain, until 1997, the Labour Party had what was called the most democratic way of doing its nominations, and it ended up always losing. Why? Because it was attempting to do what we are doing here. So you have people tearing at each other, so that by the time they go to face Tories, they have thrown dirt over themselves and so on. You know what Tories used to do? If Tories is in power, the cabinet would sit and look around the country and say, for this seat we think Mutegi would be the right person, for that one Udwak would be the right person, and so on. And they kept on winning. And if they were in opposition, it was the shadow cabinet that would sit. And it kept the Tories so united, so focused on their agenda. And the Labour, once they came, they were completely running against tearing against each other, so that the losers would actually support the Tories. I'm not saying that we should have shadow cabinet pick our nominees and whatever, but parties must have a way. It's like when you are going for football.
Two things.
When you are going for football, the coach...
You don't do elections.
Yes, the coach is the one who knows who would play. Yes.
Two things.
You can't go to the fans. You can't go to the fans and ask them
to give us
a team.
Two things. One,
yeah.
When did you realize that the party ODM does not have capacity to conduct what you call a general election? And secondly, unless you change the constitution, ODM has a provision for 3: universal suffrage, direct nomination, and consensus. Why do you go for universal suffrage if you don't have the capacity? Why waste people's time and wananchi's time?
That is the painful learning, and that is why I'm throwing out this debate. But why we do what we do, if you have been in this country long enough, you can remember the debate in Ford in 1992, where there were those who wanted electoral college. There was the Matiba wing which was saying, let people decide. And this idea of let people decide sank onto the minds of Kenyan public, but without looking at the capacity of political parties. So what we are doing, and I want to be very candid about it, we as ODM, as Jubilee, as any other political party, whether it's all apart from those that tell you are rejected there, bring 1 million and I give you a certificate. The rest of us are basically playing to the gallery, and these are the consequences.
Andrew, your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on it are anything less than the decision of the voter is not going to give us what people will accept. As far as the Jubilee Party is concerned, and I think as far as I'm concerned as a Kenyan, you've got to let that judgment go to people. Now, what we should be thinking of, rather than saying scrap it all together and give direct nominations, because direct nominations means you'll be running political kingdoms. You won't be running political parties. And what you've got to look at is, how do we strengthen the ability of political parties to carry out proper nominations? And one of the ways, I'm throwing it out there because it's a thought that has gone through my mind over the last month, is there a way of importing the IEBC into an oversight role onto party nominations where they are competitive? Let me correct my friend Daktari over here. The Conservative Party have run a nominations process since early last century. They have gone through probably the same learnings we have gone through. Where there's no competition, they do run a direct nomination structure where a sitting MP, if he's willing to continue, can continue if he's been a very strong candidate. But other than that, it's a nominations process. I don't think we are running on the same budgetary scale as the Conservative Party. So these direct comparisons should always be taken as comparing apples and oranges in some ways. But
despite the fact that they're all fruits.
Exactly. Well, yes, true. But at the end of the day, look at democracy. It's the best system of government, or the worst system of government apart from all the others. That's what people keep on saying. But we've got to reflect after this exercise in probably a candid manner such as we've done here, and say, where can you strengthen the democratic process? I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, as my friend has suggested, because you're opening a can of worms where Wananchi will also say, we're not invested in this process. Just leave them alone to select who they want, and then you'll have all this hierarchy of preferred candidates being imposed on people. It just can't work.
I just want to make a correction. First of all, I'm not advocating what is so-called direct nomination, for whatever that means. But what I'm saying is that parties must go back to the drawing board and ask themselves, will this give us the best candidates? Number two, even mature democracies like the US, you know, there are areas where they go for almost universal suffrage, but members of the party, not to whom it may concern. Not to whom it may concern. Number two, even then they have realized the difficulties, and that's where they have some places called they have caucuses. Yeah, so we must, what I'm saying is that we must debate, and if it must be this, that every 5 years we must subject Kenyans to 2 general elections in a span of 3 months, then we have to find a way, like you are suggesting, IBC maybe oversighting it, which also we have problems with. And the reason is IBC being the referee. When you begin involving them again in the internal politics of parties, how about if IBC is the one who conducted ODM elections and we had these problems, and then you now again want to take these problems for
3 months down the line.
No, immediately to adjudicate, because IBC is supposed to adjudicate disputes coming from political party nominations.
But I think
so the whole thing we must do, Kenyans, and this should not be left to parties. Let political scientists out there, let the media, let everybody debate what would be the best way of picking candidates for political parties.
To some extent, though, isn't Andrew's point that if you take the voter out of the process, I mean, look at the sort of upsets we saw during the nominations, that you disenfranchise the people, that a party might think this person is strong, and so therefore we will field you in this area, yet the will of the people is that we don't want this person, we want change.
But maybe I ask before he intervenes. What is more disenfranchising? A voter going, spending the whole day, having voted, then at the time of announcement of results, the returning officer disappears and whatever, and then the person who is announced, you don't know where they have come from.
In the bush.
Which one is more disenfranchising?
There is a perception that ODM, the certificates were being bought. There was no nomination took place in many places. In fact, the other day, I said last night, the other day, I saw people on TV saying the losers are the ones who got the certificate. They were at your place. How do you explain that? That today it's this and this, and that people say it's money, it's whoever paid. How do you explain that? The perception is that people pay.
I don't know the price of an ODM certificate. What I know is that what the returning officers brought, because they're the only people the National Elections Board would trust, they prepared the certificates based on those reports. We have been told credibly, and this has been proved in the National Appeals Tribunal, that some of these were not actually the winners, and they have advised that these certificates be nullified, and in cases, there are cases where we are repeating the process. As we are talking now, the whole national chairman of ODM is being subjected to a repeat election in Suba South.
Okay, we are running out of time. We've just got 5 minutes to go. Andrew, I'd like to give you the opportunity to respond to the moral versus legal court issue. Jaguar has a case in court. Why was he cleared to be a candidate? That's one question. And there's someone else who says, the president asked the public officers who'd been adversely mentioned to step aside. What is Musangi talking about?
Okay, let me start with the first one. When you tell me Jaguar has a case in court, what is his case in court about? It's very difficult for me to say that somebody...
It was a traffic accident involving loss of lives.
Yes. Now, you're being charged, right? Jaguar has not been convicted of any offense. Road accidents, very sadly in this country, happen every day. Now, if somebody has a fender bender on Koinange Street, does that mean his Starehe people should be denied an opportunity?
Andrew, we cannot bury our...
No, I'm not going to take it away from... Because remember, we're not going to be flippant about a death, an accident that involved death. But it was an accident. Now, it is in court. Who are we to start commenting on a court case that is ongoing? What if the gentleman goes through his court hearing and next year is acquitted? What will we have done? What will we have done? No, but what will you have done to the people of Starehe in the meantime? Do you punish somebody before his court case is over? Because if you go through the log of candidates today, I bet you will find a significant percentage of them with one court case or another ongoing.
Compare that
civil or traffic.
Compare that with the president's call to public officers who are implicated, not convicted.
Yes.
Why do you have them?
What does the word implicated mean? It's exactly what we were talking about 5 minutes ago. You've been mentioned adversely. Now you're holding this role that is an appointed role, very different from an elected role. If you go to the same person and you've taken them to Wanjiko, and Wanjiko says, yes, you've mentioned our person, But we believe in this person, we believe in their innocence. Remember, that person has gone and campaigned and talked to their people, persuaded them that I'm the right person to represent you. If those people speak, and speak with the conviction with which they have declared at the ballot box, who then are we to say you can't vote or you can't vie? Remember, they were asked to step aside from appointed offices. Appointed, not elected. When you're elected, in the last 5 years, many governors have been mentioned at one point or another. Have you seen even one governor be removed in the last 5 years by the electorate? Not one. So these are two different things. So I would like the public to be very clear in their perception that governors and senators are not appointees. MPs are not appointees. They are people who go and plead with Wanjiku for votes. Okay. And in many cases, Wanjiku has said no, in as much as she has said yes.
Right, we're winding up now, and so the question that we addressed ourselves to this morning was the nominations, the party's primaries mess. We've had, you know, a wide-ranging but very frank conversation about this. And the question we've been asking is, what is the implication for August and for our democracy? Panelists, I'd like to start with you, and then we'll finish with our guests.
The implications are out there. We are going to have more independent candidates elected to positions of leadership because of the disenfranchisement in the common Mwananchi. But I think the bigger implication is that this class, this lesson political parties keep saying they are in, has to end. A class has 45 minutes. We can't be doing the same thing over and over again, making the same mistakes and expecting different results. Political parties have to stand out there as exclusive members clubs. They should organize their nominations so that they are not general elections or mini general elections. They should be events for exclusive club members.
Mutegi?
I don't know whether these nominations were democratic. First of all, according to Mr. Musangi here, they used cards, ID cards, which means anybody, even including ODM, ANC, anybody with an ID card can vote, which means it is not membership. Why are they then asking people to pay for the membership if they are not, if they are just going to let everyone contest? Two, they are shambolic. In most cases, as we say, some of them, as he says, they are even going on today. That should not be happening all these years. From 92 when we started multi-party, we should have learned lessons, like my friend here says. To me, there is need to organize themselves in a better way, in a transparent way. In fact, much as they are denying, many places, their principals, the bosses, and I say in who gets elected. And that we are pretending, we want to pretend that it didn't happen. It did happen. There are some favored people in certain areas, in Nyanza, in Rift Valley, in Central.
Andrew.
Okay, let me respond first of all by answering the last point. I say it without fear of contradiction. I was the chairman of a national elections board. Not once did either His Excellency the President or the Deputy President call me to say that's the person we want.
He did
not once.
He did not.
Secondly,
all you need is go to the grassroots and say the way
you're blowing hot and cold. You're saying he's sitting in Jubilee House, then you're saying he's going to the grassroots.
We're winding up.
Which is which? As I wind up, when we talk about the continuing lessons of primaries, let's go back to the point where you gave us 7 out of 10. When you're given 7 out of 10, objectively by somebody sitting outside, there's a missing 3 points, isn't there? In those 3 points, there are a lot of lessons to be learnt. And it is those 3 points that we have to go back to the drawing board and say, why did we miss those 3 points from the public? The party membership register, very key issue that you mentioned. Parties have got to strengthen their registers to make sure, yes, that it is a closed exercise. Because one of the things that will do is it will make sure you temper down the issue of a general election being perceived. But if you look at strongholds, party strongholds, you're talking about 90% membership in belonging to one party. So you really have to strengthen your registers to make sure that you close this affair and make it actually a party primary and not a general election. So there I agree with you, but I would say the lessons are continuing lessons. We have never claimed to present infallible primaries.
But did you present free, fair, and credible?
We presented free, fair, credible, and by and large, peaceful elections. And when you ask me about August, this is the key thing we must move towards August with. There must be a credible and peaceful general election in this country. We never want to go back to a situation where you're dealing with loss of life because of a political process.
That's questionable, unless you mean peace is the absence of violence.
Yeah, actually I would pick it from where Andrew left, that going into August, we do expect free, fair, and democratic elections. However, I want to respond to this issue of
you have to be quick because we're out of time.
Party membership and register. ODM had registers in every polling station. However, because of the past experience of our voters, they say, you go to somewhere in Siaya and you tell the person that you can't vote because you are ODM.
You have to be quick.
Yes.
I'm going to cut you off.
They tell you no, and that is how they forced the officers there to open the register.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we'll have to end it there. We can carry on the conversation online on our social media channels because we're out of time. We will thank our guests, Andrew Musangi, the chairman of the Jubilee National Elections Board, and Oduor Ongwen, the executive director of ODM, for their time this morning and for also being as candid as you have been with us. We'll also thank our panelists for their time and their insights, and we thank you for engaging with us. My name is Udwak Amimo. Enjoy the rest of your week.